Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me on today's CoolCare Masterclass, where today we'll be looking at making your home profitable with CoolCare, or more profitable, I should say, on there. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, CoolCare is here to help making operating your care home easier, more efficient, and more profitable. And it's that third thing we'll be focusing on today. As I say, looking at ways we can help make your home more profitable. Now, as we're going through today's masterclass, if anyone does have any questions at any points, you should see the option for the Q&A on Zoom. You can use that and answer a question on there to send a question to us. A member of our team will be on hand to answer any questions you might have on anything we go through as we're going through today's masterclass. And we will have some time at the end, once we've finished, to answer any further questions you might have. But anything you think of as we're going through, feel free to ask, and we'll try our best to answer any and all questions you might have. Now then, what we'll be looking at today, as I mentioned, is way of making your home more profitable with CoolCare. The way we'll be looking into doing that is about tracking and saving costs to make help making the home more profitable. So looking at specifically costs like agency, keeping them to a minimum, and how CoolCare can help fill gaps in your rotas and stuff so you don't have to use agency in there, and see how I can help you save time with that kind of thing, and hopefully give your staff more time to spend with managing your home rather than worrying about getting agencies in there. So specifically, we'll be looking at keeping track of agencies' usage in the system, and then how we can kind of get around that without having to use them, using our messaging to see if our staff can cover those shifts instead, and look at our budgeting as well, seeing how that's lending itself to our staff as well. Just as a quick disclaimer, all data we see in this masterclass is from my test system. It's all fictional and for demonstration purposes only. No real data is being shown on this. Now, with that, I'm going to swap over to my demo system and we'll get things underway. If I swap over my screen, we should see CoolCare on there now. So, first tip we're going to look at is looking at our agency usage within the system. I'd say agency can be quite a cost for homes on there, and so you hope can obviously sometimes be quite an unnecessary one if it's something that your staff members could have done yourselves. The first step in saving money is knowing where you're spending that money to see where we can save it. And we can see that in a couple of places in agency on CoolCare. Firstly, you can spot agency usage on your rotas by going to my rota on my staff section here. I can easily spot agency usage from this page right away. Just by looking at your rota, you can see where agency is being used, where they've been brought in to cover a shift, as they are the brown ones on the rota, as it clearly says agency in there as well. So agency can be assigned to shifts on your rota if they are needed to cover them, and they can easily be spotted where they're being used. But the other thing they'll do is once they are assigned, you create the shift in the calendar, on the rota here for agency, they will go across to your agency ledger, again in that staff section on the left-hand side. You can see it down the bottom there. And this agency ledger here is where you keep track of your agency usage. So once those shifts are put on the rota to say, they've been assigned to agency from there, that will then feed through onto here to say what shifts have been assigned to agency, what they're doing, and where we can see the full detail of them. So this one here for today is the shift I've just shown you on the rota. If I click into it on this page, we can see it in a bit more detail. So the information at the top comes across from the rota shift that we'd assign it to, the date, time, and position it's for, as you can see there. As well as that, the information on the right-hand side is already filled out because that's come across from the rota as well. When you create an agency shift on the rota, it will ask you for the name of the agency you're using, which is a lookup you can customize in your system. The reasons for using agency, which again, you can customize on your system as well, having different reasons for why you might be using them. Staff covering for, so you can choose which staff member they're covering for, if it's someone off sick or absent, on holiday, whatever it might be. You can see that's in there who was, doing that shift originally. And you can even pop in the name of the person covering the agency, just typing in the box, and any additional notes you might have. So all that stuff we put in by, your admin or whoever who's creating that shift when they're doing it on the rota side of it. The other half on the left-hand side here is all unique to the agency ledger itself, so it can only be put in by those who have access to this agency ledger here. So you've got the state of the shift, whether it's currently planned in to happen in the future, whether it's completed once it's been done, if it's been invoiced to the agency, or if it was one that was cancelled for one reason or another as well. So you can change that at any point if you need to. This shift's still in progress, so I'm not going to mark as completed quite yet. But then underneath that, you've also got the costings that you can pop in. So the hourly rate and the hours worked you can add in there, whatever they might be. That. And that will work out a total paid for those hours, the hourly rate times the hours worked in there. You can also add in any additional costs, transportation costs, for example, on top of it if you need to underneath that, and that will just add it onto the total. So by putting £10 on there, for example, that will then give us a total cost of $250 for that shift. If I save that, you can see that goes into there. And when you do pop in the costings of these shifts, they will then kind of give you some totals up at the top right corner there. So I can see the total worked hours costs from just adding in the costs here. But you can also see the extra transportation costs on top of that. So the £10 I popped in on there. It gives you a total full cost for all of that for whatever you're looking at. By default, when you open up your agency ledger, it will show you anything from today for the past month and the month ahead. So a 2-month range kind of going from today's dates. But you can change those if you want to look at this for a longer date range. So, if I want to see how much I've spent on agency this year so far up to today, I can set my start dates to the 1st of January, set my end dates to today's dates, quick go, and that will filter that for me. So now I can see all the shifts that have been added to my system that were done by agency. All the details there, the dates, the agency that we used, the reason for using them, the position it was for, and then the details obviously in there, the hours, rates, costs, etc. in there. So you've got all the information you need for each shift in there, and you can update those, adjust them as you need to. And as you can see in the top right corner as well, it's also updated those totals in the same way. So you can see those costs at a glance. In that, you can even filter this list down if you need to by the state of it, whether it was planned, completed, invoiced, or cancelled. I can even, come by cancel ones in there, and that goes up quite a bit, as you can see. A lot more in there. Let's see if cancelled ones on mine. So we take those away. Just looking at the ones that were planned, completed, invoiced to say, ones I've actually spent money on essentially in there. From there, I can even export this out to get it out of the system just by clicking that export button there. Takes the information from all those shifts we've got and pops them into an Excel spreadsheet. So you can get them out of the system, send them off to wherever they might need to go, or just see them separately outside of CoolCare. You can get them from that. Use that. But yeah. Your agency manager here will just tell you how much you're spending and using on agency. You can easily see it at a glance right away. And yeah, they will come, say, from your rota. So whoever's using your rotas can put them in on to there. They'll come across to here, and then the rest of the information can be filled out from there and export out from CoolCare to see those costs as and when you need them. So yeah, that's the idea with the agency ledger. That way you can see how much you're spending on agency. And now that we know how much we're spending, we know we can now see how we can save that money. So one way you can do that is, well, I guess the easiest way to do that, spending money on agency, is to not have to use agency. And there's a couple of ways CoolCare can help with that to kind of see essentially where staff members might be able to do the shift instead of agency in there. To do that, if we go back to my rota, essentially the rota has a couple of ways to help you find cover for shifts. So where we have shifts that are unassigned that people can't do or haven't been assigned to yet, CoolCare can help you find cover for those shifts in a couple of different ways. The main way of doing that is through staff messaging. So you can actually text staff members from the shifts, asking them if they're able to cover those. And that way, so you're not having to bring an agency instead to do them, you can find a staff member to do them rather than the agency. So to do that, if you click on any shift you have that is unassigned, these white ones here that currently have no staff member assigned to them, you'll get a few options. So we can see the staff members that might be able to do the shift already just based on their position and if they're already assigned to a shift. But you can see in the middle here, it's got some contact numbers for some staff members, and those that do have a contact number have the option to message them. So you can send staff members a text message from CoolCare, from the rota, asking if they're able to cover a shift. And as long as they've got a mobile number on the staff record, you'll have that option to message them with the blue button on the right-hand side, as you can see. Best for kind of short notice cover, but all could be used for planning ahead as well. So you can do this as far ahead as you want to. I'm just using this for a night shift for this evening as an example. And yeah, any staff member that has a mobile number, you can click that blue button there, message staff, and it will then send them a text message. You can do that for multiple people, so you don't have to do it for just one person. You do have to click the button for each person you want to send a message to with that, and it will send them a text to let them know. The other side of that is to say the staff member then receives a text message. Give me 1 second. So the staff members receive a text. It's on my mobile here. Unfortunately, I can't show you it too well, but they get a message from CoolCare detailing all the information they need to know. So to read it out exactly what it says, you've been requested to cover a shift at Sam's home, so it gives you the name of the home, as a care assistant night, so the position they'll be looking at on, in this case, the 3rd of the night, 2025. So today's date, the date and time of the shift it gives you as well there, 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. And in the message there, they can then click on a little link to open up a web page on the phone. And from that, they can then respond to it, yes or no, if they're able to cover that shift. And they have two options, either can cover or unavailable. So yes or no, a green button and a red button to make it nice and easy on there. So they can choose if they're able to do that shift or not, and that will then feed back to you on CoolCare, as we'll see in a moment. So I'll say it to two people. One of them's going to say yes, they can do it. The other's going to say they can't. But one thing to be aware of with that messaging is you can't tell that someone's responded to it right away. Just looking at my rota here, nothing's changed on it. If I refresh it, there won't be any indication that someone has responded to shifts with that. And we don't have a dashboard widget to keep an eye on it. The best way we have to monitor those messages is through this button in the top right corner. It says cover requests. Click on that. It'll open up this box on the left-hand side. And this box will just be a list of all the shifts you sent out messages for to see if people have responded to them. And someone just has a good question there. If they're a pooled staff member, is it clear which location is in the text message? Yes, it does have the name of the home in there, so it will include that for you as well. But yeah, from here we can see if people have responded to it. So you can see in this case, well, give you the details of the shift itself. So today's date, 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. Care nights is the group it's in. Care assistant night is the position itself. And then they sent to two people. One said yes, one said no. If they'd not responded, it would say awaiting on there as well. So you can easily get a glance of if people have responded to the shifts and if they've said yes or no for that. But of course, that's not the full story. That's why it gives you the date and time so you know which shift it's for. I can then click into that and see the full detail. So previously, where it had this question mark to say they'd not responded to them, we've now got a tick and a cross. One person said yes, the other said no. So you can easily see who's responded to that, what response they've given, and even gives you the exact date and time they responded as well. It might be in some cases, like a first come, first served basis, if they would be given the shift based on, who's responded to it quickest. From there, you can then see, say, the time they responded as well. But the other big thing to remember with the messaging is CoolCare will not assign someone to a shift without you knowing. So once people have responded to it, you still have to choose who you want to do the shift based on the responses they've given. So in this case, pretty simple job. One person said yes, one person said no. So we're obviously not going to give it to the one that said no. We're just going to assign the one person that said yes. So if I click on them there, that will then assign them to that shift. And that will even send them another text message as a confirmation. If you have this little bit turned on the top where it says text staff when assigned to shift, with that turned on, that will just send a staff member a text message when they've been assigned to a shift, as the name might suggest. That's all that means is when you put someone on the shift, they get a text from the system telling they've been assigned to that shift, and again, gives them all the same details. So the name of the home, the position it's for, and the date and time. So you can use that as a confirmation to say, if you send it out to multiple people, one person will then receive a message back saying that, yes, they have got that shift and they're aware of it. Anyone that doesn't get the shift won't get another message. They'll just be, I guess they just wouldn't hear about it. So you can kind of use that as a way to let your staff know, if you get that confirmation, you've got the shift from there. And if they're ever unsure, they can also check the staff portal. Just to mention as well, with that cover request, with that box there, if I just use a little refresh button, that shift will then disappear from there because it's now assigned. So we're no longer keeping an eye on that any further. We don't need to worry about it. Yes, that's your staff messaging from there. I'm going to say any shift you've got that's unassigned, any staff member that has a mobile number on the staff record, you'll have the option to message them, send out those texts, and they can then respond to them in their own time. Just to quickly show you where to find that, if you do need to add in a mobile number for a staff member, it's under their staff record. Into them on here. And if we scroll down, it's on the general tab on the very first page you'll come to on the staff record. Under their address, contact details, you'll find in there the mobile field specifically. Make sure you do pop it in that mobile one. That's the one that enables the messaging side of things in there. So as long as it's in there, they can then receive those text messages from CoolCare through the portal on that. So yeah. And someone just asked another good question there. If response is not responded to a cover request, is there a way to send a reminder? Not through the rota itself, there wouldn't be, but that's where actually our other way of messaging staff members could come in handy. Under the care home section, you have staff messaging under there. So this is a way to send out essentially messages manually from CoolCare rather than being kind of automated ones from the rota. You can send out a message from here instead, just by clicking the button there, new SMS. You can then send a text message. You actually, you type up yourself as a reminder, so you can pop it in there and choose, which staff members you're sending it to. So it's useful for sending those reminders if you do need to kind of give someone a poke on that. Or so anything else you want to let your staff members know about, you can send them out from here. And you can do this to multiple staff members in one go as well. So anything you want people to know about en masse, you can send out messages from there as well. And you'll even be able to see the conversation with the person with that to see any details regarding that in there. So yeah, that'd be the way you could send out reminders from there. So you can't do it from the rota itself because once the message is sent, then it's just sent and it can't resend it, unfortunately. But that staff messaging section of the care home can be useful for anything else instead. But yes, that's our messaging rota on there. The other way, just to quickly mention as well, I'm not going to show you in full detail, but there is also a staff portal. The staff members can access that separately themselves, and from there, they can actually interact with the rota as well, actually seeing the unassigned shifts, and we'll be able to potentially put in a request for them. So there was actually, if I click on a shift, a fourth option beside the tick, cross, or exclamation, or question mark. They can have an exclamation mark, which would be where the staff members have been a bit more proactive. They've gone through the staff portal, seen it as a shift unassigned. They've then put in a request for that, and that will then show up on here. So that way, the staff members might even beat you to the punch. Rather than you have to send them a text message, they might say they're available for it already based on the request, and that will then just show up on here for you to then say, well, in that case, put them on the shift. So again, that way, we're kind of through all those options on there you've got, as long as you can get your staff members on the shifts with the messaging through the portal and just ensuring everyone's aware of these shifts and might be able to do them, you can say avoid using agency as much as you can. And avoiding using agency means avoiding having to spend money unnecessarily. So yes, that's kind of the idea of helping you save money on there with the messaging options on there. If you can get your staff members to do the shifts, obviously means we don't have to use agency. That's now the other thing to look at is ways to kind of report on this side of things. So a good indicator of your spending on staffing comes from your budgeting and adherence to them. So, from the rota here, I can see that I am kind of adhering to my budgets. But if I want to check that over a longer date range, I can see, make sure that the budgets are being kept to in terms of having the right amount of staff in the home, where agency might be being used, stuff like that in there. We've got a few ways to help with that, mainly under our reporting side of things. So your staff reports in CoolCare, all sorts of reports looking at your staffing side of things. There's plenty looking at staff hours and timesheets, and there's a few in here specifically that I want to highlight that look at kind of comparing those budgets and hours to see kind of work out your staff spending from there. And it's these three here: budgets versus planned, budget versus timesheets, and planned versus timesheets. These three reports are looking at comparing your rotas and your timesheet hours kind of at different points to see kind of your staff spending and hours on there, kind of what was planned versus what was actually done, what was the original budget that was set to say this is what the ideal amount of people we should have in there. To explain a bit more detail, the budget that explains in using those two ones is from your rota setup, the care home section there, which is essentially saying in an ideal world, this is what my perfect budget should be to have the perfect number of people in on a given day. The planned, it refers to, budget versus planned versus timesheets, is the live rota, what we've just been looking at. So actually saying this is the actual staff we have assigned to the shifts, and that will include any agency staff on there as well to see if we've met that budget or comparing it to our timesheets. And the third one, the timesheet, is from your timesheet there, looking at the actual worked hours by staff. So that would be not including any agency, but it would also and it would minus any break deductions that staff members might have. So the actual worked hours they've done compared to, again, either your budgets or your rota. So if we'll use the budget versus planned as an example, and click into that, and it will ask you for a date range when you want to run this for. You can do this for as much as you want. I'm just going to do it for all of last week, for example. There. The variance allowance of 10% there will be based on my we'll show the call coding in there, as we'll see in a moment. But if I view that report, it brings up this here. So the way it works is it's showing me my budget, which is, as I say, by what was originally set by my rota setup to say what it should be in an ideal world, 84 hours a day, in my case, across my entire rota. And then the bit underneath it with the call coding is comparing that to my live rota. So that's saying my amount of staff assigned to shifts, my budget's in there. So where it's green, we can see we're within that 10% boundary. In this case, they're all dead on, 84 hours, those ones. Where it's blue, it means we've gone over that budget. Oh, excuse me. The blue means you've gone over that budget to say that you've got more staff planned in than was originally budgeted on this. So I've added in an additional 12 hours over budget, as you can see in there. And the red one means you're under budget where a shift is unassigned or has been removed from the rota that doesn't quite add up to our full budget in there. So again, 12 hours under budget in there. So despite having being over one day, under one day, they actually balance each other out. So my budget for the full week still adds up to the 588 hours that was originally budgeted in there. So that's kind of what it's useful for, is seeing that you've got kind of the staff on shifts that you need based on that budget, comparing that to see where we are over and under, and it might balance out in some cases. And it's a good way of seeing that comparison between those different sections on the system without having to flick back and forth and work it all out manually. CoolCare can report on all that for you. And that's to say, comparing the budget from the rota setup versus your live rota, the budget versus your timesheet hours, so actual worked hours, or again, the live rota versus the worked hours from the timesheet as well. And there's even an extra one here, staff hours analysis, which takes all three of them and puts them all together into one big report in Excel as well. So you can even get it out of the system if you need to, in the same kind of vein. And if I enable it, it should be call coding. And there we are. So a similar kind of thing. You've got there your budget for the rota setup, your rota plan from the live rota, and how that compares against that budget, as we've just seen. And then the actual worked hours from the timesheets, which, as you can see, my timesheet has been filled in for last week, so it's a lot of zeros in there, showing that I'm quite under budget from the timesheet side of it. So you get that for the home as a whole, but it can also, as you can see with the different tabs down the bottom, break it down based on your departments in there as well. So however we break the system's broken down, it can do that for you. So that's a really nice, powerful report to see that comparisons in there if you need to. So yes, plenty of reporting options to help keeping an eye on that side of things in there. See, adhering to budgets, so you can make sure you're spending the right amount of money on there, and yeah, that way you're not overspending on staffing where you don't need to. And I say, with the messaging as we've seen, that'll help you avoid hopefully using any agency as well. So yes, a few ways CoolCare can help you save money and keep an eye on that spending on there to, in the long term, hopefully make the home more profitable. Yes, that will be all to show you for today. Just a couple slides just to go through before we wrap up. First of all, there we are. If you're interested in any further training on CoolCare, whatever it might be you look at, financing, payroll, rotas, residents, anything like that, anything you do on CoolCare, our team can do some training with you if you would like. You may be entitled to some free of charge training as well, if you're aware. Every customer will have at least 2 30-minute training sessions available if they haven't been used already, of course. Feel free to contact us at training to check your entitlements on there. You can email us training@coolcare.co.uk, or you can call our team 0113 385 3853. Yeah, feel free to get in touch with us if you do want any further training on anything in CoolCare. And all that's left for me to say now is thank you for joining me. And next time, our next session, we'll be looking at our rotas in CoolCare. We're doing a couple of masterclasses on rota management. Our next one in 2 weeks' time, we'll be looking at the basic stuff on there. So thank you all for joining me today. And yeah, if you feel free to stick around if you've got any further questions to ask on the Q&A, you can use them on there. If not, I hope to see you again soon and next time for our next one. Thank you all for joining and have a nice day.